Who are we voting for? Meet the candidates. Who Are We Voting For was created so we could understand who the candidates are and what they are about. This is not an endorsement for any candidate. This is for the voter to be more educated about who we're voting for.
Hi, I'm Leiggi. I'm a trial attorney with the Allegheny County Office of the Public Defender. And just a little bit about me, I grew up in New Jersey. Central New Jersey, it does exist for people who think it doesn't. I actually grew up 15 minutes from Staten Island. My parents met in Washington Heights, New York. They were super adorable, met at a church, got engaged after 6 months, had my sister, and decided to move out to New Jersey to have me. I grew up in an immigrant household. I grew up with Italian Christmases, Dominican New Year's. We always had fun. There was a lot of food, variety, and festivities. However, I realized I was part of the LGBTQ community when I was 16. I went to Catholic school on Thursdays. I was an altar server. It was super hard for me to come out and stay in the Catholic Church. So I actually left the Catholic Church, and this kind of started my non-traditional journey in life. I ended up graduating in high school at 17 years old. Right on the eve of 17, 18 years old, I moved out of my parents' house so I can be in a little bit more welcoming environment for someone who was gay. And I just started this adventure of self-discovery. I walked in New York City Pride parades. I traveled down to Atlanta. I went to Seattle, California, and I did all this. I was struggling. I was finding odd and end jobs. I volunteered for magazines. I just tried to figure out where community was and who I was as a person, and that led me back to community college. I had been out of high school for so long, I couldn't go to college. So I went to community college, and I found a program that actually allowed me to transfer into the University of Pennsylvania. If you told 16-year-old me that I would go from moving out of my parents' house to kind of figuring out myself, figuring out myself for so many years, and then going to community college to an Ivy League school, I wouldn't have believed it, but that's what I did. I went to the University of Pennsylvania. I ended up loving it in Philadelphia. I ended up working for Penn Law School, where I oversaw 30 pro bono projects from immigration, voting, tenant rights, all that stuff. And I realized I was doing all this amazing work and I was assisting other attorneys. However, I learned in that moment how much the Black and brown community and the gay community needed the knowledge of law. So I ended up going to Temple Law School and I loved it. It was amazing. I met my wife there. We actually met doing service work on the border. But after a while, I realized that I needed a little bit of a change. I was clerking for a judge at the time period, and I heard gunshots on a Zoom call. And she was like, "Hey, Lauren, are you okay? I just heard gunshots." I was totally desensitized to it. I didn't think anything of it. So during COVID, when I ended up losing my job and they said I can stay on working for $15 an hour, I said, maybe this is all these things were happening at once. I thought maybe it was time for me to get a fresh start somewhere else. And that's when I realized that the Allegheny County Public Defender's Office was hiring. And I moved out here. I've been here for 4 going on 5 years. Me and my wife actually got married in the courthouse. We got married in a secret wedding. Turned out to be not so secret for the person who married us. They told everyone the Friday after we got married. But we got married in the courthouse. We had a lovely ceremony, and we've just been living life with our rescue animals. We're trying to house shop now. We really, truly love Pittsburgh. We love camping. We love all the restaurants. So it's been a really great home, and it really has been the fresh start, I think, that both of us need to start our career and family here. So I think the skills I have to run for the Court of Common Pleas is that I bring a fresh set of skills, mostly being immigration advocacy. I have been doing Know Your Rights trainings. I've worked on the border. I work with local immigration advocacy groups and international consulates to help the citizens of Allegheny County get through their criminal cases if they have immigration consequences. Right now, everything that we have going on at the national level in my criminal defense background is impacting our cases. It's impacting our courtrooms. It's impacting how all parties, no matter how you're involved in a criminal case, are showing up to court. So I think that skill is imperative to have on the bench, and that's what I would bring to the Common Pleas courthouse. Additionally, I am a public defender. We have a joke that it is dog years worth of experience. Since being here in Allegheny County, I've done probably over hundreds of hours in the courtroom. I've represented folks from every stage, from a retail theft, a DUI, all the way up to sex offense cases, aggravated assaults, attempt homicide cases, even grand jury indictments. I've done that through the public defender's office. I've done jury trials. I've done different types of motions, all the boring legal stuff that you can think of in the criminal context. I've done it. And I also think that it's important to give back to the community. So that's why even in my busy schedule, I am a lecturer. Just this year alone, in 2025, I've done over 10 continuing legal education classes, and I've hosted a myriad of them throughout the past few years here. So to me, it's super important to keep up to date on the case law, to help inform other attorneys, and also mentor the up and coming classes of attorneys. So I think those are the skills that I would bring to the bench. A new legal mindset to the bench, a willingness to educate, and a willingness to keep learning and bring that knowledge back to the bench. And why I think I should run for judge is for a few different reasons, but most importantly is that I believe my experience, my intersectionality is needed on the bench. We too often, the Black and brown communities and marginalized communities, we're not reflected in the courtroom. I walk into the courtroom and I am mistaken for the interpreter, the defendant, a social worker, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, when you're sitting on the other side of the bench and you're from the community that's most impacted, you can make sure to say, hey, this is great for harm mitigation. This is, hey, what you did broke the law, we need to handle it this way. To me, it's so much more about identity politics. It's about cultural humility and understanding the nuances of being in and out of the system. I grew up 10 minutes from a state prison, and I've had family members impacted by the system. So I think now with everything, all the chaos that's going on in our city, in our county, and on the national level, when I realized that we had this vacancy, that we had this void on the bench, where we were missing key voices to truly understand what was going on in our communities, I wanted to make sure that I brought that to the bench to help my colleagues, my hopefully future colleagues who are going to be judges, to help educate them and help keep bringing the harm mitigation that I do every day in my practice to the bench of the Court of Common Pleas. Hey, Allegheny County. So at the end of the day, I love being a public defender. I love being in the courtroom every day. I love arguing for my clients, on behalf of my clients. I think there is probably nothing more amazing of being an attorney is that standing up every day to the government, keeping them accountable, making sure that my clients' constitutional rights are enforced, that are protected, and that just because they are alleged to have committed a crime, that doesn't mean I'm just going to meet them and plead them, walk away, and try to move along with my day. And you may be asking, you love being a public defender, why are you running for judge? And I've seen it over and over again of just trying to, in the courthouse, in the criminal courthouse, pushing people through, not giving postponements, not giving people their day in court. No matter if they're the victim, my client, a defendant, whoever they are, I am basically sick and tired of waiting around and just wasting the taxpayers' money and wasting our time in the courtroom all day. Too often I see that we're running late, cases aren't called until 10 o'clock. Not everyone even sees the judge that day. And I know it's a joke and I'm not trying to be flippant, but the only tea time I care about is when I can get back to my office, have a cup of coffee, have a cup of tea, and get back to the work. Because I know whenever my client walks into the courtroom, that means that they're taking time out of their day, out of their dollar, providing for their family, for their children, and especially even victims in cases. How many times do you have to come to the courthouse and nothing happens? You sit there for an hour or two, and then you just go back, and maybe you'll come back on another day. And to me, that's infuriating. And then when I see that coupled with everything that's going on at the national level, all the disruption that's happening, all the chaos, to me, we need folks who are truly in the system, who have been personally impacted by the system, and not care about just closing out cases, don't think of things as a statistic, but truly want to help those, want to mitigate harm in the community. And that's what I see my job as a public defender, and that's how I'll see my job as a judge. I believe that you can go into the courthouse, practice restorative justice, and to me, it's not even if it's on the criminal bench, if it's civil, if it's the family docket, you can go in there and make sure that everybody has their day in court, that you can listen to the litigants, have them present their information, and that at the end of the day, I can make a decision that's fair and just. Or maybe, there's also, I'm pausing because there's that cliche phrase of, if one side's a little bit happy and a little bit upset, and the same thing goes for the other side, you probably got somewhere at a fair balance. So that is what I'm going to do to approach my job. Make sure everyone has the time to present evidence to me, and then I can make a ruling on it, because I think we need a fresh perspective on the bench. I am going to be in my early 40s when elected. When I retire, I'll be almost 60 years old. That means that it gives you, Allegheny County, the autonomy to make the decision, to not be in this chaos of having 30 people running, fortunately only 22 this time, and 8 spots open. How can you make an educated decision if there's that many people? How can I, if I'm being forced off of the bench at 75 years old, make an educated decision of what I want to do at my next stage in life? So that's why I'm running, so that Allegheny County can have fresh perspectives, people who want to go into the community, who want to work in the community. How many people know a judge in Allegheny County? I didn't know any of them until I started working in the courthouse. I want to be accessible. I want to demystify the courtroom. I want to make sure that things are done efficiently. And then at the end of the day, when I'm ready to step off the bench, that A, it's my choice, and that B, I can either keep working for a few more years before I retire, or I could have created a pathway that opened more doors for other people who may be like me, who may look like me, or may just share some more of the progressive values that I share, that can go in and take over the mantle so that I can move on to something else. And then it gives you guys the choice of, hey, who do I want to see in the bench in the next few years? And so that's why I'm running. And I really do think it's an opportunity to get some change, some variety, and just some youthfulness to the bench. In Allegheny County, why should you vote for me? I think it's pretty simple. I want to bring it back to the basics. I want to make sure everybody has their day in court, everyone is heard, and it's done in an efficient manner. I also want to make sure that we're thinking about harm mitigation and diversionary programs, other ways that people can move through the courtroom without it dragging on for years and not being heard, and can truly get the help that they need. I also want to make sure that if you're a plaintiff or if you're a victim on the case, you also have your day in court and you're just not ignored and you don't see the judge until maybe the 3rd or 4th listing. So why should you vote for me? Is because I want to be there for you, and I want to be there for the communities that are most impacted by the court system. I'm Leiggi, and I hope that you vote for me on May 20th for the Court of Common Pleas.